West Island Blog, and I am here to make sure you know who to vote for. We have interviewed every single party on the West Island that has come forth and volunteered to be interviewed. We are here with the People's Party of Canada. Gary Charles is for the Lake St. Louis riding, and Lee Weiser is for the Pierrefonds-Dollard location. Gentlemen, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we will get right to it. What led each of you to a career in politics?
I'll admit I was never interested in being in politics for the most part. I did about 10 years ago. 8 to 10 years ago, I started to get interested because I finally started to learn leadership and economics and what the right thing to do was, which once I started paying attention, I was like, nobody's doing the right thing. Nobody's following the right principles. And at that point, I'm like, I want to do something down the road. I didn't know if I was going to run for politics, but I wanted to do something to kind of end the corruption that's there, to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the people.
Okay, Gary?
I've always been a political junkie from way back, and always took an interest in what's happening in the provincial level and federal level and municipal from time to time.
We support each other on that.
When there was an opening for me to run as a candidate, I chose the party that best aligned with my values, and the People's Party is just fiscally conservative, libertarian party, and I think that there is a need for this type of party in this election.
Can you explain to me, I'm veering off track, all candidates got the same 6 questions, unless there was an event in the news that I felt was necessary to bring up, and here it is. Maxim's conversation about the science of climate change. Can somebody address his views on that? And yours?
Well, yes, the People's Party, we don't deny that there's climate change going on. However, every single party, other than the People's Party, is giving false hope. The false hope is this: we're being asked to reduce dramatically our CO2 emissions over a short period of time. Now, Canada accounts for 1.6% of the world's CO2 emissions. In the meantime, China and India are increasing their emissions, and that's as per the Paris Accord. I don't know how they got away with it.
Is this part of Agenda 21? Do you know what Agenda 21 is?
I am not aware, to be honest.
Everybody should look up Agenda 21. It's a philosophy that we are being guided through the Green Initiative to take stock of our trees, to take stock of our land, and basically forego land ownership under the NATO umbrella. So I'm just wondering if you thought that was part of the same thing.
I don't think so, but all I know, getting back to the false hope, if we do achieve these drastic emissions, we're going to do so at an economic cost to all Canadians, but it's going to be one step forward, 50 steps backward, because whatever we're reducing from the atmosphere, China and India are 50-fold putting back into the atmosphere. So I'm not sure what the purpose is of, if there's another motive for reducing the emissions, it's not for tackling climate change. Whatever we're doing will have no effect on changing the climate.
Right, because we can reduce our emissions down to 0 and it will do nothing because of the rest of the world. So it's not us reducing our emissions that's going to make a difference. What we need is something that everybody can use to reduce their emissions if that is in fact what's causing everything. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to say I know everything about it, but I believe in the scientific method. Now, when you have all the scientists saying, you know what, climate change is real, I'm with that. I'm not going to deny it. But then the question is, what should we do about it? And what are the scientists actually saying? Because I have not seen anything that says the scientists are saying that, hey, there's this alarming issue that we need to do something now. That's not what the scientists are saying. That's what the media and the politicians are saying. Now, if it is in fact the case where we do need to do something, now let's make sure we do something that works. And I would actually argue, even though our policy says at the federal level we are not going to do anything for climate change right now because we need to make sure we have discussions, know the truth of what's going on, I would still say that if it is an issue, we have the best policy, and this is where it comes to economics, and that's where my background really lies here. Because what we need is better technology. And if you look at what Canadians are doing right now, you can look at the 2018 RI report, Responsible Investments, it shows that more than 50% of our investments right now go into sustainable investments, go into greener technology and companies that want to do something that is sustainable. So we are doing that already. What we need is more of that, because if we develop these better technologies and these more useful tools, that is something that other countries can use so that they don't have to suffer economically on their end for not using fossil fuels anymore. They'll still have something they can use.
Okay.
And if we cut our capital gains tax, this is something that will really help there. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, but that's something that's just for the rich, and I thought we're the People's Party. Now, yes, this is something that the rich will gain more from financially, because they are the ones that have more money to invest.
They're the ones that have capital gains.
Exactly. But if it's them that's putting money into those investments, and since responsible investments, sustainable investments is something that's very profitable right now, that means they are going to, on their own, put more money into that area. And then you have the average person who doesn't have a lot of money to invest in there, but who still invest, and a lot of them, for instance, play the lottery. And this would be the perfect example of how the capital gains tax makes sense and removing it. Because if you look at somebody who plays lottery, you get more people buying lottery tickets when the pot is $50 million versus $5 million.
Right.
And it's because same risk, but you gain more. And you remove the capital gains tax, now you're not being taxed on your gains. So it's still the same risk. Actually, if we were to get into it, it's a little bit less of a risk, but they stand to gain more. You will get more people investing in it for that reason, and hence more money goes to getting better technologies, which is what we really need.
Okay, I'm not going to ask this next question to you because I think you've made yourself clear. What skill set are you bringing to the table that would make a better quality of life for those of us on the West Island?
I've been an entrepreneur all my life. Owned several businesses, bought and sold. I know numbers, and the skill set would be to analyze the economic data and to come up with policies that make sense for everyday Canadians. So that's what my push would be, is to make use of my financial skills and bring it to our budget discussions.
When you're doing your door-to-door, what do you feel are the important concerns of the West Island?
Cost of living. That seems to be one of the biggest ones that come up with. Now, I can't say whether this is partly because of some of the questions that I'll ask that will bring this up, but even in the papers, they show that in the surveys, cost of living is the number one thing, which is why I think our party is the strongest there, because we're actually the only party that will do something to lower the cost of living.
We're currently paying 6 months. We work for 6 months of the year for taxes. And do you have projections for the 2040, 2030? You have 2030 numbers?
Let's get back. What I've been getting from most people going door to door is definitely cost of living.
Okay.
And I've just noticed that almost every house that I visited needs some repair. And what that tells me is that money is tight. People are living from paycheck to paycheck. Families have a hard time to make ends meet, and there's a cry out for help right now. And the other parties are promising billions and billions of spending without really looking at the issue of trying to make life more affordable. So we've got policies, for example, getting rid of supply management. Right away, that'll put an average of $700 in the pockets of a family of four, saving your groceries. Simplifying our tax code will, just to comply with the complexity of the tax code, will save a family $500. So, this is all going to put money leave money in the pockets of Canadians.
Okay.
I just want to add a bit to that, because when it comes to cost of living, this is really where I think we are the strongest, because as I said, we're the only party that will actually lower the cost of living, and part of it is because of that. We're going to lower the cost of goods by getting rid of things like the supply management, but the deficit comes into that too, because the cost of living, as more money goes out there, I'm not going to get into the whole economic talk, but prices will rise.
You're Charlie Brown's teacher right now. So
But yeah, prices go up, and that will affect the cost of living. So here we're being taxed, prices are going up, and everybody is just being sandwiched in between. So you have the other parties that are promising these tax credits here and tax credits there that most people probably won't even realize that they have them, so they're not going to gain from it. But even if they did, it's still promising everybody a little bit. So it's like they're promising you peanuts here, but taking a jar of peanuts in the other hand. And so really people aren't going to be any further ahead, even though all these different special interest groups are going to be getting a little bit of money.
Okay. If you, besides the economic department, if you were gonna be assigned a ministerial position, what would you dream of?
Besides economics,
Yeah, I can't let you do economics.
I'd go into finance or trade, but that's all economics.
Talk to me
But-
about your riding, the poverty and the food security problems you're having in your riding.
Without going into
No, you
economics,
can
I
go
don't
into
know if I can do
economics.
that.
I don't know. You can go into economics, but I am going to assign you the ministerial position, and you're going to be in charge of food security. I don't know what the title of that is, but whatever.
So when you mean by food security,
The fact that we have a lot of people that don't have. I do 2 food drives a year now, specifically for that region. So how are you going to help my poor people?
I don't want to repeat what I just said, but that is really what's going to make the biggest difference for people. People will have more money in their pockets, especially for the poorest, because here, like if you look at our tax policy, we're moving it up to $15,000 unless you're not taxed anything on that. So that's going to give them more money in their pockets. Then the products that they're going to buy is going to cost less, so they won't need as much there.
Okay.
At the same time, because we're basically making it very favorable for businesses. Now, I say that and I mean fair businesses, not the crony capitalism where it's just businesses trying to use the government to get ahead themselves. But they will be more able to hire more people because it's not going to cost them as much to do so. And that alone, they'll be able to get better jobs, they're going to get better paying jobs because there's more money to go out there. There'll be more demand for that. So all of that put together, it all stacks on top of itself to make it a much more favorable environment.
So that will relieve the stress on the economically challenged.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, what are your favorite non-political activities? We want to know about you guys.
Yeah, my favorite non-political activity. Interesting. I love playing music.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm in a amateur band, and I'm trying to get my kids involved with me as well. So
You used to own the business on the West Island.
yeah, it was
with the
called
family.
Music Circle. We had a music school and selling musical instruments
For
as
a
well.
long, long time.
Yeah, over 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lee?
So outside of this, what I am doing is teaching people about leadership and finances, just because that is what's holding people back. Just on the personal level, it's our education. And this kind of stuff isn't necessarily taught in schools, and that's one of the things that I love doing is teaching people these skills so that they can succeed at whatever they want to do. That and board games. I love board games.
Okay. I would have never guessed, Mr. Economics. Let me guess, Monopoly.
No,
Oh.
actually, because there's no real
Risk?
skill involved in that.
Risk?
No real skill involved in that either, so not really. I'd be more into the board games that most people will not really know unless they're into board games already. Like Monopoly, Risk, you're going to find that at almost any department store. I'm into the board games that you'll find at like the gaming stores.
Vote for me.
Like that doesn't-
All right, guys. What about immigration policy? How can we better manage immigration so that the poverty that I was discussing can be better managed?
So this is, I love that you brought this up because this is where a lot of people have the wrong understanding of what our immigration policy is. I mean, this is one of the things when I come across people, they say, oh, they don't like our party because we are against immigration. Until I ask them certain questions and point out we're not against it. We need immigration. But the question is, what kind of immigration? See, we need to make sure that we have enough people that can support themselves and not too many people that can't, which is kind of where we're headed right now. So we need to make sure the people are coming here is one, people that support our values. And let me point out it's values. It's not about different cultures, because we're not against certain cultures, but we do want people coming who have our values, the people that believe in freedom, that have respect for other individuals, that believe in equality between men and women, for instance. Because there's a lot of cultures that don't have that. And we want to make sure those are the type of people that come here so that we don't have conflicts between people who think in different ways.
So right now, the Trudeau signed the UN Migration Pact, and unelected members of the UN now have a say in how many immigrants and refugees Canada should allow in every year. So the People's Party is proposing to repatriate that function of a federal government, and we did come up with a figure of 150,000, which means that where the immigration level is now, 75% are non-economic immigrants. Just 25% are economic immigrants, adding to our economy. We want to make it a 50-50 proposition. So nothing anti-immigrant about our policy. It's, in fact, we do recognize the need for immigrants, but the need for more economic immigrants and less non-economic immigrants.
Okay. Now you have a couple more seconds with my followers. Anything you would like to say to your potential voters?
My big message is this, because as I'm going around, I'm not telling anybody to vote for me, because honestly, I don't know for sure that you should. Now, I think you should because I know it's going to be the best thing for you and every other Canadian. But really what you need to do is make sure you have the right information. So don't just go to one source. Don't just go to one media source, because everybody is biased. I mean, even our party is biased about what we say, in the sense of we're going to say what's good for us. The Liberals are going to say what's good for them. They're not going to say what's wrong about their stuff. The Conservatives will, but they won't say what's wrong about their stuff. They're only going to say what's good about their stuff. So the only way you can make an informed decision is to look at each of the parties, look at their promises, look at their platform, and then look at the consequences of what those would be. Understand that there's one book that I know you're not going to have time to read this but it's called Economics in One Lesson. And this one lesson is what we need to understand, not just about economics, but about everything. It's the idea that to understand what affects something is, you need to look at the long-term effects of an after policy, and you need to look at how it affects all groups of people and not just one. And so think of that when you're looking at every party's policy, so you understand how, you know what, we're going to give money to this group, but understand that has to come from somewhere else. And look at every party, figure out for yourself which party's policies you really believe in, same thing with the candidates, and then vote based on that. Just don't vote for whoever has nice eyes. Unless you like mine.
Yeah. The real reason I got involved in this is for my children.
Mm-hmm.
I love my children, and I'm sure every other voter loves their children and their grandchildren. The rate that we're going right now, in terms of adding to our debt, no party has talked about the debt. We're going to hit $1 trillion in debt. This is federal debt, forget provincial debt. $1 trillion within the next decade. Lots of interest to be paid to service that debt. And what are all the parties doing? They're kicking the can down the road. It's our kids and our grandkids that are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer economically. So this is the reason why I'm saying we need to do something now to make sure that we give the very best to our children and their children.
All right, thank you for coming out, and good luck.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Stay tuned to the West Island blog for all the election coverage. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you hashtag elections 2019, all the election stuff will come to the top, so you will see every party that's been interviewed to date. Don't forget to vote on Monday, October 21st. It's your right.
I don't know how to stop.
Press stop. God love you.